Listen, I don't want to make light of this because I know how serious of a subject it is. Unfortunately, most of us have dealt with addiction, whether through ourselves, a loved one, or a family member. Now, the first step in dealing with that is acknowledgement, acknowledging there is a problem. And then usually proximity. You have to remove the substance from the person, their household, and their proximity. Steve Kerr has an addiction to small ball. We have to remove Chris Paul from his proximity. We have to stop enabling his addiction to small ball. And it's not Chris Paul's fault. Chris Paul's been a good soldier, and you can never complain about his effort and what he's trying to do. He's just limited at his size and his age. And we've gotten to a point here where I think we have to acknowledge this issue, and then you have to stop enabling him. And it's come to a tipping point, right? Now we need an intervention. We need an intervention. It's come to a tipping point. The reality is, though, sometimes things have to hit rock bottom before they can get better. Last night at Chase Center was that rock bottom for the Warriors. The fourth 18-point lead blown this season alone. Jonathan Kuminga doesn't see the floor in the fourth quarter. And Steve Kerr, listen, it's contradictory to what this whole thing was. Steph Curry built this dynasty when they surrounded him with long athletic wings. Iguodala, Livingston, Harrison Barnes. The list goes on and on throughout the years. And now I'm to believe that our only two long athletic wings on the roster that are left can't be on the floor at the same time. Kerr keeps making this about, well, Wiggins or Kuminga. It's not that. It doesn't have to be that. And again, it's contradictory to who he is as a person. He's supposed to be this smart, adaptive basketball mind. And so I don't believe that Kerr doesn't know what he's doing. I think he knows what he's doing, and he's just willing to accept it. That's what he's going to do. The writing is on the wall, right? And so those of you that say fire Kerr now, would that also mean punting on the season, right? Here's the issue that lies is you can say, okay, we got to get rid of him. That's it. That was the final straw. But now you're going to reset in such tight of a window. It's almost a situation here where they're locked in. These Steph, Clay, Draymond, and Kerr are locked in. It's like get rid of none of them or get rid of all of them. That's what it feels like. And it's a tough situation, man. And now they have officially alienated Kuminga and Moody. You heard before the game yesterday, Moody's people, Clutch Sport, has finally come out and said, hey, like, what's going on? What's going on? Why is Moses always the odd man out? It's no longer coincidence. Once it becomes a pattern, it's no longer a coincidence, right? A couple games here and there, you're like, oh, I forgot about Mood, right? He tried to play it off a couple times. Oh, Mood, man, I don't know. No. No, right? Someone shows you who they are. The proof is in the pudding. Time and time again, it's Moses that's left out, right? And so at a certain point, you have to understand, well, Steve doesn't like him as a basketball player enough, at least not enough to get on the floor, even when we're undermanned and even when it makes sense. And now this morning it comes out, Kuminga has lost faith in Steve Kerr. And, you know, usually when this type of situation happens around the league, young players and the coaches, it's more of a 50-50 amongst the fan base. Like, well, hey, they're not doing what they should do. They need to be better. And it's not that now. I think every single person in Dub Nation and every NBA fan that's been paying attention is kind of like, yeah. And now it's come to a tipping point, right? It seems as though it's either trade the young guys or get rid of Kerr. I don't think there's a way to work this out because even if Kuminga and Moody start playing next week, the trust has been broken. I think to me, if I'm one of them, I understand like, hey, ultimately this dude doesn't believe in me as a player. And I don't think there's recovering from that. But like I said at the top of this video, I think it's a package deal with the core four, Steph, Clay, Steve, and Draymond. And so we sit at this point, man. It's a fascinating thing. The truth is, empires never fall gracefully. We know this, right? But we're at this impasse where, because I know some of you, the pessimistic fans, and I'm not blaming you for this because I'm one myself, is like, hey, You heard Charles killing them last night. They're too old. They're too old. Old people don't get better, they get older. Actually, a quote from Charles that made sense. But I think that some of you are probably saying, hey, we got to lean into the future. We got to punt here. Look around the rest of the league. Look at OKC. Look at Minnesota. We got to punt here. But how long are they going to hold on to this legacy? Are they too afraid of the blowback? I've said this before because this has been kind of an ongoing topic this whole season that now, again, has come to a tipping point. It's on Steph to pull the trigger. Steph has to go into Dunleavy's office, has to sit with Joe Lacob and say, hey, Kerr, it's run its course. We got to get rid of him. Hey, we got him. He's got to do that. That he is the face of this organization. And as soft-spoken, as polite, as generous as he can be, the truth of the matter is ultimately underneath all this, I think he has the control. All right, enough death of the dynasty talk. It's depressing, I know. Can we talk about Brendan Pojemski here for a second last night? Because I think buried in that meltdown was how well he's playing. We're going to have to reevaluate what his ceiling is and who he can be. And the way he's growing out there as a player, it's pretty clear he's made Chris Paul expendable. And I think what you're seeing is as he gets confident, did you see when he mixed Michael Porter and got to the rim, but Aaron Gordon contested? As the league gets familiar and understands like, yo, this kid can hit 4 or 5 threes. Like he's got confidence, he's got a bag, he's got a swagger. All of a sudden it's going to unlock some of his moves because initially I think players around the league were like, who's this dude? I'm not moving. Like I'm not budging. Like you ain't going to do nothing, right? And it almost worked against him as far as off the bounce. But as he establishes himself, I think he is going to be able to create and get into the paint better than he has. And then everything else he does everything else. The only thing that's missing is like shot creation. And I think it's going to slowly but surely get better because you can see his mind. You can see his passion and love for the game, and you can see how quickly he learns. The other positive is Andrew Wiggins is starting to look like Andrew Wiggins, at least on the defensive end. I think he's moving much better laterally. He's playing more vertical. There's just a pep in his step. There's each player, certain players have different rhythms. He has that real, that bouncy rhythm, and you're starting to see that. And so, again, buried in this just disaster, there are a lot of positives that we can talk about. I know you probably don't want to talk about it. I'll leave you with this thought here because I know what the comments are going to look like. At what point do we punt on this season and just say, all right, Trace is starting, Moody 25 minutes, Kuminga? I don't think they do, and I think you can blame the play-in for that. It's going to leave the door open of, hey, if we just get in. Now, as far as Kerr in his seat, again, I don't know how you get rid of him right now. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Do you relieve him, step in Kenny Atkinson as the interim coach, and again, just go young the rest of the year and see what you have? Then this summer, who else is out there? I was scouring for names. As long as Steph, Clay, and Draymond are here, I don't think you can bring in, I know that the trend has been, hey, bring in like a young mind coach, the guy they have in Utah, or a younger assistant with some fresh energy and ideas. But again, as long as the core vets are still here for chasing this closing window, I think you have to bring in another veteran coach. And as I looked at the list, it's very short, man. How would you feel about Doc Rivers? I'm not saying you may have just like turned the video off after I said that. I understand he has his critics. I just bring that name up because I think that one, his voice would immediately hold weight in the locker room. He's familiar. Hell, he's family with Steph at this point, right? But he's familiar with these guys. And Doc strikes me as the type of guy that would have the nerve, have the guts to kind of do what needs to be done as they bridge this gap into this next era of Warriors basketball. I think he might have the courage to sit a Clay, sit Steph at the end of a game. Maybe not that. That's kind of wild, right? But you get what I'm saying. I think he might have the clout to be heavy-handed with this roster. But again, there's not a ton of options out there, man. At this point, I really don't know how to feel as far as hoping they can turn this around. And it's like, I understand the belief and the optimism and never giving up on Steph and this core because they've done it so many times where you're like, "Oh, dude, we're done," and then you're not, right? So I understand that optimism. At the same time, right now, I don't know whether to hope for that or just hope for the wheels to completely fall off, and so we can finally pick one direction. As far as the details of that collapse last night, I have a 15-minute breakdown, quarter by quarter, play by play of that game on my Patreon right now. I'll leave the link in the description. As always, hit that like, share, and subscribe. I'm out, y'all.